Have you ever waited to feel confident before taking action? Well, you're not alone. And it makes sense because the world will tell you you need to be confident in order to be successful at something. But I want to suggest that confidence is overrated. Because what's really true is that it takes courage, not confidence, to be successful. And if you wait for confidence to come, you might be waiting a long, long time. Let me explain. It was the fall of 1983, beginning of high school, and I was sitting in my acting class. And if you had been sitting with me this particular day, you would have seen my teacher, Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith was an older, probably about my age now actually, balding gentleman, and he was a little bit rough around the edges, kind of intimidating. Can you picture someone like that? So this particular day, Mr. Smith says, "Deirdre, Jennifer, come up here and read this scene." So I jump up, and I'm part scared because I've never read a scene for him before, but I'm also excited because I really want to show him what I can do. See, since the 4th grade, I had been acting, and I would usually get a pretty good role. But my crowning moment came the year before when I was cast as Scrooge in the 8th grade musical. And what made getting that role even sweeter, ladies, I beat 4 boys for the part. So going into high school, I was really confident in my acting ability. So we read the scene, look to Mr. Smith, and he says, "Jennifer, well done. You could be the next Meryl Streep." Wow, I'm thinking. Now, if you were around in the 80s, you know nobody was better than Meryl. She was winning all sorts of awards. So I'm thinking, Jennifer was in Scrooge with me. She was the ghost of Christmas Future. So if she could be the next Meryl Streep, I was the lead. Who is he going to say I could be? He looks at me and he says, "Deirdre, that stunk." I was crushed. Felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Has that ever happened to you? Where someone says something that just rocks your world? And I remember wanting to scream, "What? How is this possible?" But I was too embarrassed. And so saying nothing, I just slunk back to my seat and I sat down. Now, I wish I could tell you that because of that moment, I grew a thicker skin. I wish I could tell you that I chalked it off to a bad day or a bad opinion. But I didn't do that. And you know what else I didn't do? I didn't take the stage again for 24 years. No acting, no speaking like this, nothing. And looking back now, what makes it sadder to me is that when I was 10, my mom was killed in a car accident. And acting was the only place that I felt happy and sometimes even normal. Now, to be fair to Mr. Smith, I can't tell you he said the exact words, "You stink." But whatever he did say, it had that same effect on my fragile 14-year-old psyche. And now your story might be totally different than mine. But if you're like most people, you've had one or many incidents in your life where you've been rejected, or you've failed, or not been accepted. And isn't it easy in those moments to make the Mr. Smiths the enemy? But they're not the enemy. Our real enemy is fear. See, for 24 years, I allowed the fear of not being good enough hold me in a prison and keep me for something I loved. And for 24 years, I listened to fear when it said, Deirdre, just wait until you feel confident. Then you can take the stage again. It never happened. And as you can imagine, or maybe you've experienced, our fears don't generally isolate themselves to one area of our life. And so what I started noticing over time was that waiting for confidence was my go-to excuse for not doing the things that scared me. And maybe you can relate. Now, obviously, something's changed because I'm standing in front of you today. And what's changed was I got tired of fear running my life. And so 12 years ago, I went on a relentless pursuit to do what I call fire my fear. And today, you're going to get a little bit of what I've learned. Now, when I say fire your fear, I am not suggesting that you should try to get rid of fear, because that is not realistic and it's not necessary. What it is about is learning how to fire fear from being the chief decision maker in your head. Because once you do that, it's so much easier to make decisions that move you forward in your life rather than hold you back. And then when that happens, life becomes this adventure in possibilities rather than a sea of limitations. So in the next 8 minutes or so, you're going to pick up 2 of the foundational formulas for firing your fear. And they both revolve around change. So the first thing you must do is you must change your perspective on what it means to be afraid. Now, most people, when they initially feel that feeling of fear, they automatically think, oh no, something bad's going to happen. I'm not going to do well, I'm going to fail, I'm not going to look good, whatever your version is. And then you do nothing, which makes sense, because if you think something bad's going to happen, why would you take action? But here's what's really true. Being afraid can't predict a future event. Being afraid just means you're afraid. But even better, what I have found is that if you're not afraid, you're not playing a big enough game. See, it's actually good to feel afraid some of the time, because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, on the other side of fear is not doom and gloom, is not bad things, but it's great growth and opportunity. But the only way to have that growth is to lean into the fear. So how do you practically apply this? Here's what you do. Next time you're feeling afraid, or if there's a situation right now that you're struggling with, you're avoiding, ask yourself the following questions. The first is, what if this feeling of fear is actually an indication that something good is going to happen? The next is, what if this is my time to take courageous action? Or as my daughter Annika used to say, exercise my courage muscle. And then make your decision on what you're going to do based on the answers to those questions, not on the answer fear is giving you. The next step to firing your fear is to change your position. And this can best be illustrated through a story. So I wish you could have been with me. This was back in October of 2010. And I was sitting in a sweaty church gymnasium watching my then 6-year-old son, Noah, play floor hockey. And if you've ever watched kids at that age play a team sport, you know there's not a lot of strategy to the game, right? So this particular morning, things were different. For much of the game, Noah's team was actually playing offense, and the other team was playing defense. So this meant that Noah's team was scoring a lot of goals. And I was really excited, and I was cheering with the other parents until I noticed the faces of the little boys on the other team. This one little boy, Jack, had this look on his face as if to say, "Come on, bring it on. Nothing's getting past me." Whereas this other little boy, Ian, had more of the deer in the headlights kind of look, like, I hope the puck doesn't get past me. But no matter what their thought was, those boys had the same thing in common. They were so busy defending the goal that there was no way they could think to score a goal for themselves. But don't many of us go through life like that? We're so busy playing defense. We're so busy trying to keep things out of our comfort zone that we rarely give ourselves the opportunity to pick up a stick and score a goal. But if you want to truly fire your fear, you have to start playing offense. And the way to practically do that, and this is going to sound scary, but it actually gets fun after a while, is that each and every day, instead of going out into the world and trying to hold things back, right? Trying to ward off things that make you uncomfortable from getting into your comfort zone, go out and look to do one thing every day that makes you uncomfortable. And it doesn't matter how small it is. It could be just driving a different way to work. Maybe it's a little bigger. Maybe it's like I advised my son Noah to do just this week when his close friend knocked down his snowman that he worked really hard on. He was mad. I said, you know what, instead of going to your room and storming off and pretending you're not mad, why don't you have a hard conversation and tell him how you feel? Or maybe it's changing jobs or starting a business. But look for one thing different to do. See, you have to intentionally train. Just like you would train for a marathon, you have to intentionally train in order to fire your fear. And what's really wonderful is the more you get out there and you take intentional, courageous action, the more your comfort zone is going to expand, and you're actually going to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And see, when you're comfortable being uncomfortable, there is nothing you can't do. See, because what most of us are afraid of is our own emotions. The reason why we avoid certain things is that we don't want to feel bad. And we're not quite sure that we'll be able to tolerate our own negative emotions. And so the more you push yourself to do things that are uncomfortable, the more you start to trust yourself that you can tolerate your own negative emotions and that they won't destroy you. And then the ironic thing that happens over time is that the confidence you've been so desperately waiting for becomes yours. Because courageous action is actually the fuel for getting more confidence into your life. It's not the other way around, as you may have been led to believe. So, change your perspective, change your position, and you'll change your life. And I want to leave you with this slogan. And this is something they say at the highest bungee cord jumping bridge in the world. It's in South Africa. And they use this slogan very successfully to get otherwise sane people to jump like over 700 feet to their potential death. You may have been there. You have, okay. Fear is temporary. but regret is forever. What action are you willing to take today in order to avoid feeling regret tomorrow? Thank you.
Once again, I'm Joe Schmidt, and I am a retired Marine Corps officer. And when I was a Marine, I served as the Marine Corps Air Station's logistics officer at Camp Pendleton, California in San Diego. And what an air station really is, imagine a large airfield with combat aircraft out there along a 4,000-foot runway with tons of buildings. So that's what I'm kind of talking about. But my story today is really about how my commander, through the use of servant leadership, not only saved my son's life and changed our family's life, but he started a movement called the Wounded Warrior Project. Many of you may know that. It's also called the Wounded Warrior Regiment within the Marine Corps, and it helps thousands of people today. But it started with one person making a change. So today when I talk about servant leadership, I'm really talking about putting people out front, leading, engaging, and inspiring people to do great things, things they wouldn't otherwise do unless you challenge them to do so. And I'm also talking about how we align people's passions with our organizational goals. And when we do that, we really see a significant impact. By comparison, I would tell you that traditional leadership is where a person who's in a form of leadership stands out front, has the most authority and the most power, and has behind them people that they're leading kind of in a follow-me mentality. Still very impactful, but I would tell you not nearly as impactful as servant leadership, at least in my life. That being said, I'm going to show you a picture here of my son. Drew in this picture is prior to his surgery. You can kind of look at him a little bit. He's a fantastic young kid. For the first 2 years of his life, he was very healthy. At the age of 2, we go to a normal pediatrician appointment. Who's taking their kids to a pediatrician appointment? Who's taking their kids to a pediatrician appointment telling them that your son's got a life-threatening disease? That's what took place. The doctor says to us during a normal appointment that your son has got a condition called sagittal synostosis. A long word, fancy word for basically everybody remembers the soft spot on the baby's head that we should be careful of. Well, that soft spot in my son had healed and fused completely tight, and so tight that his eyes, his pupils were always very big. And I always thought they kind of looked like that kitty with a little look on his face. His eyes were always so bright, and the doctor's like, not so much. That's intracranial pressure. His brain has no room to grow. His cranial vault is too small, and it's got significant impacts. The significant impacts are he could go blind tomorrow. We don't know what level where he's at because the brain is still being discovered today. He could lose motor skills. There's a multitude of things that could take place. So this is extremely urgent that you seek medical attention. And I'm not an expert in that, he said, but we do have experts locally. So we see a local expert, and they verify the diagnosis. And he also says that, Joe, this is significant. You need to reach out and let your people know that this is taking place and really take care of your family because this is your focus right now. Well, I'm a Marine, right? I'm also married. I have a wonderful wife and an older son. So I think immediately, how do I focus on my son at this point in time with this news? So I reach back out at the end of that day after getting the news on a Monday, and I reach out to my command deck or my commanding officer, and I reach out to the secretary, and she says that the commanding officer is in tomorrow morning from 7 to 8, but he's flying out to El Central, California with all those combat helicopters I talked about to go out and do combat preparation missions in El Central, California, and then on to Yuma, Arizona, and he won't be in. So be here tomorrow morning first thing and meet the commander and kind of tell him what's taking place. So the next morning, I kind of prepare myself and how I'm going to meet the commanding officer and share this with him, and I do. I basically tell him my son's condition, and he looks at me across the table like a father and says, I will do anything in my possible to make sure that your son is okay, and not only for him, but for you as well. But he said, if any condition changes in his health, you need to let me know immediately. And I say, okay, sir, and I go back to work. And I know he's got a flight, so I was really respectful of his time. So that day I go back, and I'm a project manager in the Marine Corps. I'm a logistics officer. I have $75 million of construction projects across 5 buildings taking place. So I go back kind of with haste, and I tell the people that I work with, our subcontractors, what's taking place. And I tell them the whys. I think sharing the whys are often very important. And they say, Joe, we'll do whatever we can to support you. It's the second time I heard it this day. And they were really wonderful. I also had a new mess hall which is kind of like a military restaurant that was being built, and so that was also being taken care of too. And they said they could take care of that piece of the business. So at 1 o'clock that day, I get a phone call from the command deck saying the commander wants to meet you. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the commander's still here. Planes must have been delayed, or he's got all these combat maneuvers, and this doesn't just happen. These are aircraft that have to fly and cruise and people that have to take place. Well, they weren't going to take place that day because he was so focused on me. He said really what was super impactful to him is that he can make a difference. So when he said and sat me down, he said, hey, I told you this morning I was going to take care of you. I want you to contact this person. And he slides across his desk a piece of paper to me, and in my hand is a name, and it says Dr. Susan Koweski. And I would tell you, Dr. Susan Koweski, unbeknown to me, is a world-renowned craniofacial reconstruction surgeon. She's a plastic surgeon. She's part saint. She's a sculptress. She's an artist, and she's also a Rhodes Scholar. She is a brilliant woman. Well, now we have a wonderful doctor from what I hear, and she says she can meet with us the next day. So on Wednesday, we meet with her, and she also confirms the diagnosis. And now she's an expert, and she says, Joe, time is of the essence. We need to do this somewhat quickly. And she told me two things. She told me the first thing is that your son's condition is critical. Not only do we have to go into his skull because it's fused, we have to open that up, and we have to remove the top portion of his skull from the brain, which the outer coating of the brain is called the meninges. Anybody familiar with the meninges of the brain, the outer coating? And she used an analogy I'll never forget. If we all think our jobs are tough, think about this. She says, Joe, imagine putting a piece of Scotch tape onto a piece of tissue paper, the kind you wrap Christmas presents with. We're all familiar with that right now, Christmas presents. And taking that piece of tape off that tissue paper without any white on it. I've done it 50 different times. I've ripped the paper every single time. And she says, I have to be very fastidious, and this will take a lot of time. It will take 11 surgeons in 11 hours. He'll be in critical care for a week. He'll be in intensive care for another week because we can't have an infection in the brain. If we have an infection in the brain, think about having to reopen the entire skull. So hearing this news was like, wow, it's overwhelming. Who's been in an overwhelming position where you've had bad news, someone had cancer, or maybe someone has another diagnosis that just completely blew you away? I felt defeated. But I would tell you, one of the great things here is she said the second thing. She said, Joe, there's hope, but you also have to think about your child right now and really focus. And the second thing is he's going to need a lot of blood. If we go into the brain and we separate the skull from the meninges, and by the way, the skull has to be put into 50 different pieces. The brain has to be pulled out. And now they have to fit that new brain when it's all complete, or the new skull when it's all completed, back on to a lower portion of the head that's also been reconstructed. So this is a full head surgery. And so, long story short, she kind of tells us that this is important that you have blood. And so I said, I understand. She gave us some people to coordinate with blood, and she said, also start harvesting your own so that they can have some from the family. And it's like, I'll absolutely do that. So we take that news on Wednesday, and I drive to work on Thursday morning like I typically do. I go in the base at Camp Pendleton, California, beautiful San Diego morning, and I make a left-hand turn going on to the Marine Corps Air Station. Who has seen those big kiosk signs that have lights blinking on them, and they typically say welcome, or they say some news? Well, typically that sign always says, welcome to Marine Corps Air Station with a logo, and it said typically like the PT or the performance test is tomorrow, or it had certain specific sayings on there. Well, this day it said, blood drive for Drew Schmidt. It had a blinking heart, and it said, support one of your own. Pretty impactful, right? So I go through the gate, I do a salute, and I drive through, and I go around as I make a turn into my parking spot, and I see at my right-hand side, I see a large building. I talked to you earlier about the large airfield, right, with all these large buildings with helicopters in them. Typically 3,000 people work there. On the right-hand side, I see a blood mobile. I think, wow, that's so cool. We just talked with the doctor yesterday about having blood. Well, unbeknownst to me, my colonel knows all of this and has reached out to these doctors not only to provide them to me, but they'll also have to do some of this so I can focus on my family. So as I made the left-hand turn, and I look down the row of all these buildings, I see 4 more blood mobiles. Wow, you know, he really went above and beyond. Just amazing leader. So I go in and really quickly, and I try to meet with the commander to kind of say, hey, this is just an amazing moment for me. Thank you. Well, he's not in. Like, oh, geez, okay, I'll go down and do some more work. I'll turn over the rest of the business that I have up on the construction sites, and I'll get that taken care of. But I really want to meet with the commander to say thank you for putting my son on the kiosk, but also for really leveraging his network with all the other subordinate commanders, all the other colonels out there who are going to have people out there. Well, at 9 o'clock, I made sure it was early. I leave the office, go back out to my car. But as I'm going to my car, I just want to peek around the corner, and what I saw would bring any one of you to tears. Hundreds, if not 1,000 Marines were out there in uniform who were giving blood to my son. Well, that's impactful. I would tell you, he had a much bigger vision. His vision was this: Joe, I couldn't get the resources, all the resources I have here today for your son, but we can not only support your son with all the blood we need, but we'll also donate these 1,700 units of blood. I mean, some of these guys look like pincushions, you know? They were donating so much blood to the local community, which resulted in saving 4 lives that were in accidents that weekend in San Diego County. So let's talk about his leadership model. Who's going to do that for one individual person? We talk about servant leadership. We talk about putting other people's first and aligning personal passions with individual goals. And that's exactly what he did for me. He not only saved my son's life, he committed me to teaching servant leadership across the country and being guest speakers. And I can tell you, too, it's one of the things that have just impacted my life and everything I do, that if I can inspire and engage someone to lead, I absolutely try to do so. This springboarded into something much bigger. Those construction projects I told you about, months later, were finished. And a general came to my colonel and said, we're entering Operation Iraqi Freedom and combat operations in Iraq. We have people coming home who are injured, seriously injured, multiple amputees, bilateral amputees, people who have been hit by mines, who have been shot. We want someone to take care of them, but we don't have the facilities at the Naval Hospital, Camp Pendleton, to support that for initial resuscitative care. But we have our new buildings. He's like, I have brand new buildings. I'll work with Joe Schmidt, who's my area commander, kind of like the mayor of the city up there, and we'll work out a plan. So after what he did for me, it was the least I could do was come up with a great plan to help create the first Wounded Warrior Reception Center in the Marine Corps. I would tell you today, that is a multi-million-dollar enterprise that leads and helps and guides combat wounded Marines and sailors coming home from combat all across the country. But it started with making a difference with one single person. The general never forgot the commander's commitment to me. I never forgot the impact that he made on my life. And we started a reception center today, which is called the Wounded Warrior Program. It's absolutely amazing. So I'd leave with you this today, that if you can make an impact, even on one person's life, you may not make an impact across the world, you may not make world history, but you can and should make a difference in the lives of those people you work and you live and you celebrate with every single day. You do not have to have positional power, because the colonel, all due respect, sir, had no business to be in my business. But he took it upon himself as a leader, as a servant leader, to put me first. I'll also tell you the logistics to put all those blood mobiles out there and to take all the Marines off the flight line who had these combat missions prepared to go down for training had to be stopped and rotated. So there's significant behind-the-scenes work that has had to happen. Now remember, I was notified on Monday. This is the following Thursday. It took 4 days to change someone's life, and hundreds of thousands of people today benefit from that one decision. I challenge you to make that decision towards servant leadership. Thank you very much.
Okay, look at the person next to you and just simply say to them, were you born? Affirmative, affirmative. Everyone was born, everyone's here. Okay, so let's just start by just saying and being really clear about this talk. They're giving me 10 minutes to literally change your life in 10 minutes. And so in those 10 minutes, the first thing you must know is that when you were born, I don't care who your mama was, your daddy was, whoever it was that pushed you when the doctor said push. They did their job. So for some of you who don't like your mothers, get over it. She pushed, and that's what really matters, right? Absolutely. So because you were born with something very, very important. And all of the other speakers have been talking about this, but in these next few minutes, let's put this in perspective of exactly what is it? What is it that you were born with that makes you so incredible? And what it is that you were born with power. You were born with it. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to try to pretend to be like somebody else who's powerful. You were born with it. And whether you are Pinky Peach or Caucasian or African American or Latino or Native, wherever you are in the world, you were born with power. Look at the person next to you and just say to them, well, first of all, just say to me, I was born with power, Dr. Vernon. Just say it. Let me hear you say it. Now let's say it so the TV audience can hear it too. Let me hear. Now that's what I'm talking about. Now just to make sure that you know, look at the person next to you and say, do you know that I was born with power? Go ahead. This is good. You were born with it. You were born with it. And you were born with 7 dimensions of power. It's behind me. I'm hoping it's behind me, and you're looking at it. You're born with 7 dimensions of power. The first core dimension you were born with is spiritual power. You know what? I am an executive coach. I work with young people. I work with business leaders. I had this Carlson School of Management young woman come to me once, and she said, Dr. Verna, I'm doing great in school, but I'm about to lose my mind. I have been in depression for a long time. And I said to her, listen, young woman, I said, don't you think that your body needs the whole you? Do you think you can just exist on your mind or exist on your education? You need your spirit, sweetie. When you were born with a soul, a spirit. Your Creator gave you something so powerful. And we forget in our society, we forget it's spiritual power in you that generates something amazing. And when you know that, I have been listening to all of the newscasts about the death of our great, great man, Nelson Mandela. A great man. But just think about that, right? When he was born, there was something lodged into his spirit to do something about his world. And when it came time, he said, it's time now. It's time now. Look at the person next to you and say, you know what? It's my time now. Just look at him. Come on, quickly, very quickly. Very quickly. So there's 7 dimensions of power. The first dimension of power is spiritual power. If you don't have it, go find it. And listen very carefully. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about finding your core purpose, finding who you are, finding your birthright. Find that thing in you that's so much deeper than anything in this material world, and you'll be so much happier. The second form of dimension of power is your energy. Have you ever had someone walk into your house and suck all of the positive energy out of your house? Yes, right? And then they want to eat your chicken and watch your TV after they suck all of the energy out of you. Or they come into your office and they suck all the energy out of you in your office. Well, we are people with energy. You have the power of energy. Let me tell you, if you haven't done energy work, learn how to use and pull up your positive energy. You have it. Energy is contagious. It's a wonderful thing, and people are attracted to it. People want energy. The second thing is the next dimension of power. It's the power of thought. You have the ability to think a new thought. You know what I love about the presentation is that, you know what? Your commander, you had a new thought. And no one, listen, I'm a born-again believer in Jesus Christ. I love God. I love Jesus. But not even God can tell me what to think. That's my power. I get to think what I want to think. You have to harness your power to think. The next power is the power of vision. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I see Miss Dara on here in the audience. You know what? She had a vision of her own publishing company. I love that. And here you are. You have your own publishing company. Love that. What's your vision? Women all over the world, what's your vision? Men and women, what's your vision? What do you see for yourself, your family, your future, your community? What do you see? And here's what's so amazing about power. I can't tell you what to see. The next dimension of power is the power of your words. You have got to watch your mouth. Look at the person next to you and say, if it's not good, don't say it. Just... It's time to watch your mouth. If it's not positive, if it's not going to help you, stop talking. For some of you, you're going to have to stop talking, right? Because things that come out of your mouth aren't positive things. It's the power of your words. You get to say anything you want to. So be careful what you say. And then there's the power of the written pen. You have the power to write something. Let me tell you, I bought my goals here. They're sitting right over there in that chair. I take them everywhere I go. Do you know why I'm here today doing a TED Talk? Because I wrote it down, Miss Alyssa. I wrote it down. You don't know I wrote it down. I wrote it down years ago. Do you know why my own talk show is hosting and actually happening within the next week all over the Twin Cities and soon to be all over the world? Because I wrote it down. Look at the person next to you and say, stop thinking it, stop talking it, and write it down. Quickly, quickly. We only have a few minutes. And then there's the power of action. You have a power of action. I just went to go and see. You know what? I love President Nelson Mandela because he didn't just talk about it. He said, remember that speech he gave? He stood up and said, if it means that I must die for this thing, I will do it. I'll do it. Right? You have to be willing to take a what? An action step. Now, you can't stand up here in this audience, but I just want you to think about this for a minute. We just went to take our children to see Frozen, right? Walt Disney Frozen, great movie. And at one point, when she finally discovers who she is and her power, she looks around her whole community and she says, are you ready? And she takes her foot and she just like, bam, just like that. And everything that, just let's just try it. Come on, wherever you are in the world. Just wherever, tap your foot. 1, 2, 3, just boom. Oh, wasn't that great? Right? Wasn't that kind of fun? Well, put your foot down in your life and take an action step. Now, let's go to the next slide. You will end up being one of 4 types of powerful people. You're going to use all of this power to be one of 4 types of powerful people. And I wrote a little book many years ago that I was asked to write. And I was asked by my creator to write this book. And it was very simple. And I said, yes, I'll write the book. But exactly what is the book? Because I didn't know what I was supposed to write. And then I got the name of the book, and the book was called The Power of People, 4 Kinds of People Who Can Change Your Life. And then I said to God, okay, that's a really cool title, but who are those 4 people? Because I don't know who they are. And then, for the next 3 years, in isolation, I wrote this little book. Today, we call the little purple book that did. I'm the founder of a project called Girls in Action. Do you know what we teach our girls? We teach them that they're powerful. I don't care who your mama is, how much money you have, don't have. I don't care what your government or regime will or will not let you do. Let me tell you, girls, you were born with power. Put your foot down and do something about it. Something. Do something about your life. And there's 4 types of powerful people. They're adders. They're subtractors. They're multipliers and dividers. Here's my call to action. Here's what I'm supposed to do with this world, right? I'm supposed to teach people that you are called, you were born powerful. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to challenge yourself to become an extraordinary adder. Who's an adder? Someone who's continually, consistently, intentionally adding value to their own lives, to their families, to their community, and to their world. You are an adder. I truly believe believe that people were born to add to society. I truly believe that people were born for a purpose, for such a time as this. You know, Nelson Mandela, he moved beyond being an adder. He moved to being a what? A multiplier. This is someone who takes the ideas of an adder and takes them and puts their spin to it, puts their energy to it, and make it so. Has anyone ever watched Star Trek before? Do you know what Jean-Luc used to say to his crew? When it's time, what did he say? Make it so. And the whole crew would just come together and they'd work it out, right? Multipliers make it so. Nelson Mandela said, whatever I have to do, I will make it so that we no longer are a nation that is divided, and injustice will go from this place called South Africa. And as a matter of fact, it began to go from the world because he became a multiplier. It's a whole other level of power. It's intention. My goal is for you to be an intentional adder. Listen, if you're not adding to yourself every day, you can't add to me every day. Right? Are you adding to your children? Are you adding to your school? Do you know why I do Girls in Action? And actually, one of our members is right here, and one of our women leaders, Ms. Natalie Johnson-Lee, right here in the audience with us, because we want to add. And then, of course, there's subtractors. Okay, they're subtractors. They come into your office, and they typically come in as soon as you get them there, and they come in drinking their coffee. And then they come in and they sit in your chair, and then you, of course, you ask them, how are you? Wrong, right? Because then they take out their energy-sucking, drama-dumping machine, and they hook it up to you, and by the time those 45 minutes are done, you need Pepto-Bismol, you got a headache, you've lost 45 good minutes, and then they have the nerve, they'll come back at lunchtime to try it again. Why? What do subtractors do? They take things out of your life. They take things out of your life. They take things out of your life. Listen to me very carefully. Wherever you are in the world, if there are people in your life right now that the only thing that they do is take, even if it's your mother, it's time to manage that. Because here is the mathematical equation. 1 + 1 is 2, right? But if you have 2 and you have subtractors, you're going to keep on doing what? Going back, going back, going back. Your life cannot get to the place it's supposed to be, which is the place of excellence, with the subtractors in your life. Now, here's what I discovered. Molly, I discovered this. I thought all the people I talked to in audiences that you were all adders. That's what I thought. And then I realized that some of the people in the audience, they're subtractors. Right? You're a subtractor yourself. If you're a subtractor to yourself, here's the wonderful thing. 85% of subtractors don't know they're subtractors. They're simply socialized. You were taught to be a subtractor. You were taught to take. It's not like you're intentionally wanting to be mean and terrible. You were just taught to do that. So because it's an inverse relationship to adding, if you can become a subtractor, you can become an adder. Now, the most dangerous of the 4 types of people are dividers. Dividers know exactly what they're doing. They know how to do it. They target you to do it. And here's how you know a divider is in your life. All of the adders move away from you because dividers isolate you and manipulate you and make you think that they're the only one that you can depend on. Here's my question to you. Who are you going to be? You're powerful. You have all of this power. Who are you going to be? Here's why I came to this talk. I came to make sure that with intention, say intention. Say it loud, say intention. With intention, you make a decision to be an adder. And for those of you who have big dreams and big vision, to be a multiplier. Because the world needs multipliers. But boy, the world needs a lot of adders. And that's you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Hi. Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about a project that I started this October. It's the Hey Eleanor Project. Maybe you guys have heard this quote, possibly an hour ago, from Deirdre. Do one thing every day that scares you. Something Eleanor Roosevelt once said, and I think that is a great motto to live by. However, I wasn't really living that way up until recently. Earlier this year, I decided to start conquering my fears. So this fall marked a lot of firsts for me. For example, I went skydiving. I went on my very first hunting trip in Arkansas. I'd never touched a gun before. I've never shot an animal before. I actually cried a few times before I went because just thinking of hunting put like a huge knot in my stomach. Also, I tried cooking a lot. I've been cooking a lot of things that I have for the first time this fall too, and it's been super fun and exciting. But how did I get here? Well, I went to college at UW-Madison. I'm a Badger. Went to school for, yes, journalism and communications. And after school, I decided I wanted to figure out how to get paid to eat and travel and write about it, which, I mean, doesn't that sound like a dream job? And there's a whole great story behind how that happened, but I ended up getting a job with Andrew Zimmern, who maybe you guys know him from Travel Channel. He's got a show called Bizarre Foods, and I've been working there for 6 years. I freaking love my job. All I get to do all day is talk about food, write about food, talk about travel, write about travel. It's the best. We've written 3 books together. We have a podcast together. I run his website. I have no bad things to say about it, except that I realized, where did my voice go? I've been spending the past 6 years writing for someone else's brand, which I love. But, you know, I'm not a 52-year-old white Jewish guy from New York City. That's not me. I have a different story, and as much as the two of us totally get along and love each other, I've been telling someone else's story for a long time. So I did a little soul searching and decided I wanted to do my own project. And so I ended up coming up with the Hey Eleanor Project, where I do one thing every day that scares me. And it started off being really daunting because 365 things is a lot of things to do, and then it's also a lot of things to write about. But I've really found that it's actually changed my life. And what I thought was just going to be like a blogging project has totally turned everything upside down. So it's fun because I do get to be me, and I do get to use my own voice to tell my side of the story. Additionally, it allows me to be adventurous, and not just adventurous like skydiving, but it gives me license to say yes to things I normally wouldn't have, and it allows me to see possibilities in my own backyard. I've found through the blog that I've been inspiring other people to try new things as well. And actually, the whole writing aspect of it, writing about things that I'm doing every day, has made me a more efficient writer, which is great for my other job because what would normally take me like 5 days to write, it's now taking me a couple hours. So one of the greatest things I've been able to do so far is work out with my hero, Richard Simmons. And what was crazy about that was I've always wanted to work out with Richard Simmons. I don't know about you guys, maybe that doesn't speak to everyone, but doing this blog project gave me the confidence to not only go to Beverly Hills and do that myself, but somehow talk my fiance and my brother and his fiance into doing it with me. And spoiler alert, Richard made my brother and my fiance take off their shirts at one point in the middle of class and dance for everyone, which was a total highlight. So some of the things I've learned so far, conquering one fear every day, is that there are scary things everywhere. I thought it was going to be hard to come up with stuff. Turns out, a scary thing finds me no matter what, every single day. I had to I had to jump my car by myself, which typically I would have relied on my fiance to help with that. But I I thought, put on your big girl pants, Molly. You can probably figure this out. So I Googled it, and it wasn't actually that bad. Yeah, there were some sparks. Apparently that's normal. I did not know that. I got a flu shot at Walgreens. I mean, you know, when you go to Walgreens, have you had your flu shot yet? No, and I'm not getting it today. No, I got my flu shot at Walgreens right there in the pharmacy. It was awesome. And also that bathroom I've used now, that is in my basement. I had to kill a spider first before I could get in there, but yeah, scary thing, just a few floors down. Another thing that I've learned is that things that can actually kill you, not always as scary as the things that can't kill you. I don't even know how to explain it in any other way, but skydiving, jumping out of a plane wasn't really that scary to me compared to sending my doctor a letter about some really poor care I had gotten from her. I confronted her about, basically I ended up sick and in the hospital, and it's because I thought she made some really poor decisions, and confronting my doctor about that, 1,000 times scarier than like jumping out of a plane with some guy from Connecticut strapped to my back that I'd never met before. I mean, way harder. I can't even explain it. Another thing I've learned with facing your fears is that guides are very important. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, like for me with this hunting thing, I'd never been before, not comfortable with guns. So for me to find a person that could lead me through that was huge. And I happened to find this woman, Georgia Pellegrini, who is her deal. She's the girl hunter. She's built a career around hunting and being a chef and cooking wild game and stuff. So she invited me to go hunting with her. And what was so amazing about it was hunting with another woman gave me permission to be emotional about the experience, something that, I mean, my dad and my uncles have invited me to go hunting with them 1,000,000 times, and I was like, no, that's not happening, because, you know, I was pretty sure I was going to cry when I went. I did cry. I cried a lot, and I felt like my family, my uncles maybe would have made fun of me, but she didn't. And another thing that was so important about it was she helped me navigate, like figure out where my boundaries were. And sometimes she, you know, having a good guide means that they might tell you when to stop, but it also means they might tell you when you can go farther, when you wouldn't have gone farther on your own accord. And my other guide is Officer Tom Fahey, who took me on a ride along. He's a Minneapolis canine cop, and it was like one of the most fun nights I've ever had. But guides are extremely important. I've discovered, much like Deirdre was saying, that when you're willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable position, it's kind of crazy how I was talking to my fiance actually about this last night, and he said that he totally admires my enthusiasm for everything now in a way, like I was not, like I built this fence in our backyard. I never would have built a fence ever in my whole life before starting this project, and I would have just let Josh do it on his own. But because I needed material to blog about, it was like, sure, give me some weird saw thing, and hopefully don't cut off my fingers, and why not hand me a drill? And it's been crazy just how my perception of life, like instead of just being scared of so many things, I just see possibilities in every single day. It's kind of crazy. Oh yes, and the other thing I've discovered too is that there are so many adventures to be had in your own backyard, and I have a quick video here. This is actually something I did in the office next door to mine. So this is literally happening on the other side of my desk. The lady who does like energy healing next door to me had invited a Chinese healer to come in for the day, and she knew I was doing this project, and they had a cancellation, so she said, Molly, you want to come over and do this like ancient Chinese healing thing? And normally I would have said, no way, that sounds weird, but because of this, I thought, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to try doing it, so roll the beautiful beam footage.
going again.
So that happened. But I think that is a really good example of just showing, like, I can't even, it's been so fun. I only have been doing this for 90 days, but it's been super intense, but really, really fun. And I just can't believe all of the cool opportunities and possibilities that have been opened up to me based on me saying, you know, that's gonna make me uncomfortable. I'm gonna avoid that. Instead, I've been really just leaning into my fears. And when you lean into your fears, your comfort zone, like you were saying before, it really expands, and it just makes life so much more fun and exciting, and I think it really makes you a better person. And what's crazy is my thing for today is talking to you guys up here, because I don't know if you've ever heard this quote that the number 2 fear is death, and the number 1 fear is public speaking. So a lot of people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. But yeah, what's funny is I think 90 days ago, I would have probably gone to the bathroom before I got up here and thrown up or something. And instead, before I got up here, I went into the bathroom and just like laughed. I was laughing by myself in a stall. Sorry if anyone was in there with me and was just wondering what was going on, but it is. But I just can't even express. You guys, I encourage everyone to just try. You will find something, I guarantee, today that makes you uncomfortable. And instead of shying away from it, I urge you to just lean into your fears a little bit and just kind of see how you feel afterwards, because it's changing my life. And I think, too, another thing I'm so excited about is, you know, coming here and speaking today was really uncomfortable for me, but I can't help but wonder, as Carrie Bradshaw might say, I can't help but wonder if maybe I would meet someone here today that could change my life. You just don't know. So anyway, that's my Hey Eleanor project, and I invite you all to follow along on the blog. It's heyeleanor.com. And if you have any ideas for me, because I only have like 300 more things to do this year, you can email me at heyeleanorproject.com or at, what am I saying? gmail.com. Oh, thank you. Okay.